G'day everyone and welcome back to another live stream here at the Australian Reptile Park. Now this is a pretty cool place to be. I could imagine most people get a bit nervous if you had 55 alligators standing at your back, but that's exactly what we're doing today. So for you guys at home and been tuning in for the last couple of weeks, we hope you're enjoying these live streams. Obviously everyone's stuck at home at the moment, so hopefully these are bringing a little bit of joy to your day. And I'm going to introduce you to a whole stack of American alligators. Now behind me, I said before, we got 55 American alligators inside of this lagoon, and this is where we keep our adult American alligators. Now we have a couple of big crocs. Obviously we've got Elvis the saltwater crocodile. We've got a smaller female saltwater crocodile on display as well in the Lost Water Reptiles, but primarily we have a heap of alligators. I think we've got like 70 or something like that. We actually recently just introduced 20 new large male American alligators from our friends up at Oz Zoo, which has been really exciting for us, bringing 20 new boys down into this lagoon. So if you've been to the reptile park before, you would have seen the lagoon and you probably would have checked out our really big gators. So all I'm going to do is, I guess, introduce you to a couple of bigger ones. Now they're not really keen to come out of the water today. It's pretty cool conditions, to be fair. It's just under 20 degrees. So they are being a little bit sluggish, but I'll introduce you to a couple of the bigger ones. And then at the end of the talk, or towards the end, I'm going to show you the end result of an alligator breeding season. I'm going to introduce you to one of our, this year's hatchlings. So as you can see, there's quite a few gators just sitting here waiting. And generally, if this was summer, and I was standing right here and I'm waving my hands around and getting all excited, they would get very excited too, because they think that they're going to feed. But in this middle part of the year, we actually don't feed the alligators for about 5 to 6 months, or approximately around that, from kind of middle of April to around late September, or kind of October-ish kind of time. And that's when we'll start feeding them again. And really we're waiting for the weather to tell us when to start feeding them, but also too, judging their behaviour. So this was middle of summer, and I started waving my hand around, started calling out to them, going gator and all that kind of stuff. They'd get very excited because they think I'm going to feed them, and they'd start chasing me up on land, and we'd be able to make the camera guys very, very nervous. But today they're not going to do that. In fact, even if I brought out some food today, they probably wouldn't feed. They'd probably just look at it and be like, nah, come back in a month or two and we'll be ready to go when it starts warming up. And that's no different to them out in the wild, where they're found in that southern part of the States, quite similar in terms of temperature or I guess their thermal requirements that they experience in the wild that they get here at the park, which enables us to keep them in this big, large natural lagoon. And we see a lot of normal natural behaviours. But we'll get the camera in nice and close. Caitlin, you can bring it in. So right in front of me, we've got a boy to the left of the camera and a male reversing back now. So they're males that are probably just under 300 kilograms. They're not our biggest boy. Our biggest boy, he's not appearing today. His name's Mr. Googly. He's probably down the back there somewhere looking after all of his girlfriends on the corner. But yeah, he's a really, really big boy, and he's pretty much the sire of most of the alligators that call the reptile park home. Now, far to my left, you can get a little bit closer there, guys, with the camera there, is a female alligator. Now, she's got a bit of fire about her, and you can see, with the male to the right, big buff head, massive. Woo, look at the size of that head, massive. Now come back to the girl, there is a substantial size difference, and that is really crocodilians in essence. The males grow quite large. Saltwater crocs are a great example. They can reach weights of around 1,000 kilos. Girls maybe top the scales at around 100 kilos or just above. Similar for gators. Some of the largest male alligators can reach weights of around 450 kilos. Whoa, a bit of commotion over in the side there. They've all kind of kicked off there, and basically what they were one might have bumped into another one as they started to swim around, and it's encouraged them all to go into a bit of a flurry and kick off into the deeper water body. But as I said, so the males are substantially larger than the females, and the males, we only have, we just introduced 20 more in here. So we've got 25 males, and we've got about 30 females. So it's pretty much even keeled now for sex ratio out in this lagoon. But before, we used to have like 5 or 6 big boys, and then really had a large amount of females. And every year, those males will mate with the females, and then obviously we'd be able to produce eggs. Now, the reason we keep a lot of alligators and not a lot of crocodiles is because saltwater crocodiles in particular are what we call a tropical species. They're found in the northern parts of Australia. They're climate is very different to the climate we experience down in this part of New South Wales. So we stick with the alligators. It's very easy to keep them in this natural setting and a great way to view them. Now, alligators aren't like crocs. They're not really going to chase large mammals like we are. We're a large mammal for food. They like to eat something about their size of their head or a little bit smaller. But how about I introduce you to, I would say she's probably the most dangerous alligator in the lagoon. If you scroll way back into the Reptile Park archives, you can actually watch a video of her nearly taking off one of our, he's not here anymore, but Brando, one of our young keepers, literally was this close to biting him straight on the hand during a catch-up when we were raiding her eggs. Because she is powerful and she goes after you, there's no doubt about it. So this is the big girl we're talking about, the big girl in question. Her name is Halftail. Now you can hear that noise she's making. We might, if she goes towards the water, guys, we might follow her actually, because that'd be really cool to watch. She's vocalizing quite a bit, and basically she's saying to us, all the guys that are here, hey, you're getting a little bit close. I prefer it if you stay where you are, and we'll do that. We'll respect her and give her space. Mate, you can see a few things about the alligator and its shape. You can see that blunt U-shaped kind of snout, a little bit different to the more elongated or V-shaped snout of our crocodile. But also too, when her jaws come together in a couple of seconds, she might not do it now because she's too busy telling us to bugger off, but when those jaws come together, you'll probably see the bottom teeth disappear because those teeth fit into grooves in the top part of the snout. Now, it's a little bit different on a saltwater croc. When a saltwater croc's jaws are shut, you'll always see both sets of teeth exposed. A couple other things I'd like to point out. You can see the limbs, in particular the back limbs, where you can see the flippers. Do you want me to grab the camera and I can get a bit closer? Yeah, I'll just have a... I know she's telling me to back off a little bit, but if you have a look, see the webbing between the toes? They're excellent swimmers. Now, they do spend a lot of time out on land, they do spend a lot of time out here basking, but obviously they're excellent in the water. And she has that really strong muscular tail. That's the propelling force. That's what they use to cruise through the water, and they can move around quite quickly. I'll just get the camera on those teeth there because that's really cool to see. All right, now I'll give the camera back to Caitlin. You might notice she's actually missing a small portion of her tail. That's why we call her Halftail. She had that bitten off many, many years ago. She had a fight with her boyfriend and she lost the tip of her tail, but it doesn't worry her at all because what she actually does out in the lagoon, she kind of sticks that end part of her tail out, and there's a bit of a warning to all the other alligators that, hey, this is my territory, and she is the dominant female. There's actually another one, we call her Flappy Neck. She's down the other end. They're probably the two big girls. They kind of dominate each end of the lagoon. You've got Flappy Neck down that way, and you've got Halftail who kind of controls this area, and all the female gators really do stay out of the way of Halftail. Now, it's pretty cool to be able to get this close. And the reason we can get this close is it is quite cool. So they're obviously slowed down quite a bit at this time of the year, but also too, we're keeping an eye on her movements at all times. But there is a period during the latter part of the year, around Christmas, New Year's, where female alligators will begin to deposit their eggs, will start to nest. And to my, over my shoulder there, you can see, that's remnants of Halftail's nest from last year. Now, if this was nesting season and we were standing this close to her nest, she'd be charging at us, literally running after us to get us. And that's one of the main differences between crocodilians. I'm just going to sit here so you can see her in the background. Crocodilians in other reptile species is they actually do have quite strong maternal and paternal instincts. And what I mean by that, they will protect their young. It's incredible to think you've got an animal that has the ability of crushing almost anything inside of its jaws, but they can be delicate enough to pick up their little hatchlings and carry them down to the water. And it's not just the females that do it. If you look at a species from India called the gharial, the male gharials, which are extremely large, will actually form what's called a creche. So you'll have this big giant male gharial and then literally hundreds of babies sitting around the adult male. How cool is that? I recently spent a bit of time up on the Daintree and I was watching a female crocodile with her little hatchlings all around her, and she was protecting them, or even climbing up on top of her head. So she knows that they're her young and she'll protect them for a short amount of time before they're off to do their own thing. When you're a small alligator, you have an extremely tough life. Getting to this point is tough. I'll tell you why. When you're this small, literally anything can eat you. But if you can make it through and you can reach your sexual maturity size, you've got a good long life ahead of you. Their lifespan is approximately 80, maybe 100 years, maybe even longer. So they can live for an extremely long amount of time. And as I said before, when we talked about their size, 450 kilos, that is a big, big gator. But they don't start off that big. So what I thought I'd do is, just whilst we're filming Halftail, I'm gonna go grab one of 2 of this year's hatchlings. They're calling a bit. Do we want to hear that? Oh, yeah, they're calling and they're getting Mum very excited. Let's move away a little bit. This actually isn't Halftail's babies. These are actually from the female down the other end. We mentioned before, flappy neck. So these are, oh my God, doesn't this get you excited? Wow, if I'm ever going to be plucky, it's right now. I've got 2 little alligators in my hand. These are 2 little hatchling American alligators. So this is this year's hatchlings. They're only a few months old, and you can see how small they are. Now remember, the male's 450 kilos. When these hatchlings first hatched out of an egg, they weighed around 45 to 55 grams. That's it. Now at the moment, they're probably around that kind of 100 gram mark, so they're not very big at all. And they're going to take a fair amount of time to grow. They'll reach their sexual maturity size at about 15 maybe or so, or 20 for a male, 15 for a female. You can, ready? Oh, hang on, it's stopped. There we go. How cool is that? I'm not sure if you can hear, I hope you can hear that because it is quite cute. And that is actually an alligator doing its call. And they will do that call when they're young. They'll call out to their, obviously to their mum if they need protection or anything like that. But yeah, they can be quite vocal. Now, I'm not exactly sure, positive on the sex. We did incubate them as males, so I do predict that they are males. We won't know for a little bit of time because when they are this small, there's no real way to tell the difference, but you can do it through incubation and temperature determination of the eggs inside the incubator. So we did try to hatch out males this year, so no doubt these are 2 little boys. And as I said, they've got a long life ahead of them here at the reptile park. We'll probably be looking after these alligators for another 100 years old. Now at this size, they're obviously going to feed on smaller bits of food. We start them off on things like small invertebrates, small pieces of fish, small bits of chicken, really about the size of their head or a little bit smaller. And we'll feed them every day or 2, probably pretty much 5 to 6 days a week they'll be fed. It's a little bit different for the adults. Typically the adults will only feed a couple of times a week, and that's because when they're small, the energy that they're consuming or the food that they're consuming is obviously going straight towards their development, their growth, and they need a lot of time to develop and grow, so they need to put a lot of resource into that. When a crocodilian is fully grown and it's at their mature size, obviously the food that they're taking in is more about sustaining their weight, but also too reproductive cycle and getting through that reproductive cycle, in particular for the female, because the females can have fairly large clutches. Sometimes their clutches can be above 40 to 45 eggs. So inside the egg, it takes about 65 days to hatch. Once they hatch out, obviously they can look after themselves from the moment they hatch pretty much. They are precocial in that way. They'll start looking for food in the wild. They'll be feeding on small fish or small crustaceans and things like that. They're incredible to see up close. We only have a couple of hatchlings this year. And as I said, they're going to keep me very, very busy for a very long period of time, I'd imagine. And probably a few reptile keepers after me. Unless the park get rid of me or something, I don't know.
Do these babies have teeth yet, Dan?
They do have teeth. It's going to be really hard to see. Hang on, I'll put one in my pocket. No, I won't do that. If you get in, I probably won't try and open its mouth too much, but you can actually see, if you look really, it's probably hard, but they have very, very small teeth. And when they are this small, they're actually a little bit sharp too. They obviously don't want food escaping from them, so they have more sharp, pointed teeth. Whereas if you look at the teeth on that gator, well, you would have remembered before, it's almost like a more rounded shape now. So not quite as sharp or as small or pointed as the teeth on these little guys. They're beautiful, aren't they? But yeah, they definitely do have teeth. Now, they're not going to hurt you if they bite you, obviously. It feels like a little nip, but yeah, it doesn't really hurt that much at all.
So what are these guys' favourite thing to eat at the moment?
What's your favourite thing to eat? Anything? Meat? Yeah, pretty much. They don't really have too much of a preference. As soon as they see you coming towards them with food, they get very excited. They start jumping around. But yeah, anything really. Chicken, fish. They don't mind a little bit of prawn every now and then. Kind of anything, really.
Are alligators very territorial?
So not as territorial. Well, the females will be around nesting season. So when we're doing our breeding season, we actually build a whole range of nests to try and keep the alligators apart a little bit. So the dominant females have their preferred nest, etc. But the males, as I said, we've got, 26 males, 25 males out in this lagoon. Now, if that was saltwater crocodile, it would be very different. Elvis, if I put him out here, you just kill everything. But the alligators, they kind of get used to each other, and you will find big male alligators in the wild quite close to each other. Not so much the case for saltwater crocodiles. They are a little bit more territorial than the gators.
How do the alligators know when it's breeding season, when they're ready to mate?
Oh, good question. Okay, so reptiles are very, very in tune what's going on in their environment, okay? So temperature change could be one of the indicators. A change in humidity. There's so many variables. So what will happen here is as the temperature starts to cease, the alligator activity will decrease quite a bit, and for pretty much 4, 5, 6 months of the year, they don't do much at all. Then as the weather starts to warm up, obviously the male will start to produce sperm and get very excited, and he'll start to fight the other males, and then he'll go mate with the female. So really, their breeding season here in this part of New South Wales, or their part of the states that they're from, it's activated by that increase again in temperature. So then they'll start to mate. So it's basically like they know exactly what time it is, what part of the year it is. They don't need a clock, they don't need an iPhone. They just know by what's going on with the weather.
So these guys are making some pretty cute noises.
Yeah.
Do the adults make any noises?
They do. You would have heard the female, she was kind of exhaling air and getting, and when the males, I'm not going to do it because Caitlin's trying to make me do it. I know what's happening here. I'm not going to do it, but they'll bellow. So the water will vibrate. They can be quite loud. If you look up on like YouTube, there's plenty of videos of alligators making the noise in the wild. I'm not going to do it because I'm not very good at it. I'm sorry.
How fast can they swim, Dan?
Yeah, well, crocodilians, you're talking above maybe, the cruising speed of a dolphin, which is pretty quick, over 20 kilometres an hour. Now, it's going to outswim most of our Olympic swimmers, so don't go swimming in the northern parts of Australia where saltwater crocodiles are found. Please don't, because you won't outswim them. They are quite quick in the water. Now, on land, a little bit more cumbersome. So on land, a female alligator can chase you around, but those big boys, because of the weight they've got to carry, they've got short little legs, they've got a big belly, they've got the big thick tail, they can't move very quickly on land. So they do their best type of, movement in the water.
Would you rather come up against a saltwater crocodile or an American alligator?
Good question. Would I rather come up against one? Would I rather be swimming next to... Look, to be honest, I always like the same saying, right? If you make a mistake with an alligator, you get hurt. If you make a mistake with a saltwater crocodile, you get dead. That really is it. They don't miss you. So I'd probably prefer to come against an alligator. I certainly wouldn't want to make a slip up with Elvis the crocodile because he would not miss. I actually did once, many years ago. I was fixing that speaker over there, right? That's up the top there. And I was meant to fly to America the next day. I was flying to America to go catch and look for alligators in the wild. And I was fixing that speaker, and the two boys that were meant to, Ranger Mick was one of them, were meant to be watching my back. They were kind of having a chat and forgot about me. And last minute, Ranger Mick called out Dan, and I looked behind me, and I had a big male alligator coming right at my bum. Thankfully, I just jumped away, and I didn't end up in his mouth. But if that was Elvis, I wouldn't be here anymore. That really is that simple. So I was very lucky just to kind of see him at the last minute and move away. If that was the big croc Elvis, I'd be gone. I wouldn't have made my trip to America, that's for sure.
Can you tell us more about the little spots on their face, Dan?
Yeah, so you can see the tiny little black dots if you can zoom in nice and close. They're called integumentary sense organs, or let's say ISOs for short, all right? They're pressure receptors. Alligators, particularly when they're under the water, alligators have them on the head, whereas crocodiles have them on every scale of their body. So saltwater crocs are far more sensitive to vibrations under the water from my perspective than alligators. And, you can even see that like if you throw a bit of food in a tub with a crocodile, he'll hit it like a torpedo. They just don't miss. Whereas when you throw it inside with an alligator, they'll shovel around more like a platypus, just almost hoping to bump into it or find it. It's a great example of how sensitive the saltwater crocodile is in the water in comparison to the alligator, but they are little pressure receptors. So really cool adaptation for being under the water, but still being able to feel, particularly if it's dark and they can't see, where food might be coming from.
All right, Dan, last question.
Yep.
Can you tell us a bit more about how they hunt?
How they hunt? Yeah, good question. So You could imagine there's some actually really cool stuff that alligators have done in the wild, you know, where they put sticks on their head and all that kind of thing, pretend they're a nest and birds will come down, they'll grab them. But you could imagine you're an alligator and say you're chasing a turtle. Now, turtles aren't always the fastest swimmers at times. You can imagine what they're doing. They're waiting for that vibrations. They can see underwater. I'll show you how they can see underwater. It might be hard to see, but when this alligator closes his eyes, oh, hang on, there you go. You're gonna sit here for me, ready? Ready? You're gonna see one, I'll just put 1, 2, 3. A third set of eyelids. So they've got their own inbuilt set of goggles. So you can imagine they see a turtle under the water, they swim it close to it, the turtle might swim next to them, and then they'll strike out to the side and grab it. So a saltwater crocodile, if it's predating on something like, I don't know, a kangaroo coming down at the water's edge to drink, saltwater crocodile's inches below the surface of the water, that kangaroo comes down, sticks its head in, crocodile swipes up to the side and grabs it. If you look at some of those really incredible videos of Nile crocodiles where they wait for the herds to travel through the rivers and those zebra and water buffalo are running through, and of course the crocs grab out the side and grab them, doing the same kind of thing. So they can be explosive predatory species. All right, guys, I think we're wrapping it up now. I hope you enjoyed our alligator chat. I think tomorrow we're going to be talking about some of our beautiful spider species, so keep tuning into our live streams. We are closed here at the park at the moment, so if you're at home and you think, what can I do to help the guys at the park? We've got heaps of different programs. Head to our website. We're pushing a lot of our adopt our animals at the moment, so you can jump online and adopt some of our amazing critters, contributing to our beautiful team here, keeping these animals nice and happy. I hope you enjoyed that. The alligators are happy. They're going to go back and get away from their parents. I'm going to put them back and enjoy the rest of my afternoon. Hope you guys are doing okay. Thinking of you. Can't wait to see you back at the reptile park soon. Cheers. See you later.